Mutual funds in children's names, future security or hidden loss? In the morning at the admission counter, a father's hands were shaking. Before him was 30 lakh rupees accumulated over 15 years, but the bill for college, hostel and other expenses had turned out much larger than that. He remembered at the daughter's birth, the agent had said, "Start a child plan, her education will become secure." Every month the money went, statements arrived, and the family kept becoming stress-free. But on that day, for the first time, a question arose: was the mistake in the investment, in the amount, or in that trust which was born from having in the child's name written on it? The answer was uncomfortable. Because adding a child's name in a mutual fund does not make a guarantee for the future. Sometimes this very decision gives discipline, and sometimes it stands up such a problem of liquidity, tax and control, which comes forward on the 18th birthday. The real story before the return is of ownership. In whose name is the money, who can withdraw it, what will happen when the market falls, and to whom will the control go as soon as the child becomes an adult? Right here the benefit and loss separate. Suppose the entire current cost of some course is 20 lakh rupees. If we assume an 8% annual cost inflation for planning, then after 15 years that same goal can be of approximately 63 lakh rupees. This 8% is no universal prediction. Medical, MBA, engineering, education abroad, hostel and the city. The cost of every goal increases at a different speed. If the currency changes, the math changes further. Therefore, the start does not happen with which fund should we buy. First, the future cost is calculated by adding today's fees, living expenses, available years, and potential inflation. Only then the target looks real for the first time. Then from that target, existing savings, the realistic possibility of a scholarship, and the family's contribution capacity are subtracted. The difference that remains is the very thing that tells how much the SIP should be, and not some attractive advertisement. Right here, the limitation of old methods becomes visible. Money can look secure in only a savings account or a low-return deposit. But if its post-tax return lags behind the cost of education, purchasing power will silently keep decreasing. A mutual fund is one way to that problem, not a magical solution. It takes the money of many investors and puts it in shares, bonds, or both. Therefore, the result remains dependent on the portfolio, cost, time, and the market. A fund with equity can give an opportunity for growth in the long term, but the path is not straight. In between, a 30 or 40% fall is also possible, and the day of admission does not wait for the market to recover. A long time can increase the capacity to bear this volatility, it does not eliminate it. Therefore, putting a 10 or 15-year goal and a 2-year goal into the single same fund is not wise, even if child is written on both. Now understand the truth of an SIP. And SIP itself is no product or guaranteed return. It is a way of buying units at fixed intervals, which decreases the pressure of timing and forms a habit of investing. For example, if a monthly SIP of 10,000 rupees runs for 15 years and the average return is assumed to be 10%, then the estimated corpus can become around 42 lakh rupees before taxes and costs. But our estimated education target was 63 lakh rupees. Meaning, despite remaining disciplined, the family can remain around 21 lakh rupees behind. The problem was not of the SEP, it was of making an incomplete target in the beginning. Now if that same SIP increases by 10% every year, then on the same return assumption, the corpus can reach around 74 lakh rupees. Increasing the contribution along with an increasing salary is sometimes more effective than finding a better fund. Still, both 42 lakh rupees and 74 lakh rupees are illustrations, not a promise. The actual return will change every year, inflation can go above the estimate, and tax rules can change. Therefore, a margin is necessary. Now comes the most confusing part of the story. A children's fund and a mutual fund folio in a child's name are not the same thing. The names are similar, but the rules and flexibility can be different. In SEBI's current framework, a children's fund is a solution-oriented category, in which there is a lock-in for at least 5 years or until the child becomes an adult, whichever comes earlier. Its meaning is not protection from market risk. The lock-in only stops redemption. The NAV still goes up and down with the portfolio, and in what proportion the fund is in equity, debt or both is the very thing that decides the risk. Here the words whichever comes earlier are very important. Units bought for a 2-year-old child can generally remain locked for 5 years, but in the case of a 17-year-old child, majority can come earlier. The benefit of a lock-in is that the goal's money does not come out early due to panic, temptation or a small need. The fund manager can also have less worry about sudden redemption, and the family maintains discipline. But this very door is found closed in an emergency. On job loss, a medical crisis or a change of plan, locked units cannot be used. Therefore, without making an emergency fund, forced discipline can sometimes become financial pressure. On the other side, any normal equity, hybrid or debt mutual fund can also be connected with the education goal. It will not have the mandatory lock-in of a children's fund, although there can be scheme-specific exit loads or other conditions. Now see the mechanics of opening a folio in a minor's name. The child is the first and sole holder. A joint holder is not added, while a parent or court-appointed legal guardian operates the account until they become an adult. Proof of the date of birth and guardian relationship has to be given, along with the prescribed KYC and bank details. A small mismatch of documents can later stop redemption or a status change, therefore even the spelling at the start is important. SEBI's minor investment rules allow accepting payment from the minor, parent, legal guardian, or their permitted joint bank account. One should not rely on a random third-party payment. The biggest operational twist is in the redemption. Even if the subscription went from the parent's account, the payout goes only into the minor's verified bank account or an appropriate joint account of the minor and guardian. As soon as the child becomes 18 years old, the guardian's operating authority stops. If the KYC, updated bank account, signature and minor to major process are not completed, fresh purchases, redemptions, SIPs, STPs and even SWPs can be suspended. And this is not just paperwork, it is a question of ownership. The units belong to the child from day one. At 18, only the control comes from the guardian to the hand of the adult child. Parents cannot call it their money later. This is the benefit too and the danger too. The corpus really becomes ring-fence for the child, but after becoming an adult, if they put the money on a car, travel or some other dream instead of higher education, the final decision can be theirs. If the investment remains in the parent's own name and an education fund is made through mental accounting, then the control remains with the parent. On a change of course, receiving a scholarship or admission being late, it remains easy to change the allocation. But the weakness of the parent name strategy is human behavior. On the pretext of home, business or an emergency, that same corpus can be touched again and estate planning is weak. Access can be complex after the parent's death. Therefore, the question of a better return between a minor name and a parent name is itself wrong. In the same scheme, the return will be almost the same. The difference is of legal ownership, access, discipline and decision-making after 18 years. Now that illusion breaks regarding tax, which many families consider a benefit. Income does not become tax-free merely by investing in a child's name. A minor's investment income is generally clubbed into the parent's income. According to the current guidance of the Income Tax Department, Section 64(1)(a) can apply. In the old tax regime, there is a limited 1,500 rupees exemption under Section 1032, but this exemption does not remain available in the new regime. After clubbing, keeping units of an equity-oriented fund for more than 12 months can become a long-term gain under current rules. A 12.5% tax can apply to an amount above 1.25 lakh rupees in the parent's aggregate eligible LTCG. On selling equity-oriented units within 12 months, the short-term gain of an eligible transaction can currently be taxed at a 20% rate. Cess, surcharge and individual circumstances create different impacts, therefore current rules should be checked before redemption. Assuming the taxation of debt-heavy international gold or other mutual funds to be like an equity fund is a big mistake. Portfolio classification and the date of purchase can change the treatment. It is necessary to look at the post-tax return while choosing a product. Adding a lump sum from an annual bonus, inheritance, or a birthday gift can give speed to the corpus, but the payment must go through the permitted bank route only. Do not put extra money into a risky fund merely because the goal is emotional. In an accumulation goal, the growth option often remains simple to understand because gains remain within the NAV. An IDCW is no additional return. After distribution, the NAV decreases and there can be a different tax treatment on the payout. Now comes the turn to choose a fund, where a brochure with "for children" written on it should not be the decision. First, read the asset allocation, risk-o-meter, benchmark, expense ratio, portfolio and lock-in. See the name later. Some children's funds are equity-heavy, some keep a hybrid approach. The downside of two funds of the same category can be very different. Therefore, saying a child plan is secure is as wrong as saying equity is always dangerous. The highest return of the past single year is often the brightest trap. It can be the result of a market cycle, a concentrated bet, or a temporary theme. The future admission bill will not become small by looking at a leaderboard. For a long goal, a diversified equity fund or a broad market index fund can be one potential building block. Making a sectoral or thematic fund, the core increases concentration because the child's dream gets fixed on the fortune of one industry. An index fund can be simple and comparatively low cost, but the word index does not erase risk. The tracking difference, benchmark choice and market falls still impact. Simplicity and safety are not the single same thing. The portfolio of a direct and regular plan can be the same, but the cost remains different. According to SEBI's investor guidance, due to there being no distribution commission in a direct plan, the expense ratio is generally lower. A 1% annual cost difference sounds small, but it can create a big impact on the corpus in 15 years of compounding. Therefore, one should compare the return received after the expense, not just the gross return. Still, if guidance is needed, buying a cheap plan is not the lone goal. A competent, suitably registered advisor who saves you from an incorrect asset allocation can give more value than their fee. Both cost and advice should be transparent. The strongest strategy changes with time. If the goal is far, the role of growth assets can be big, but the exact equity allocation should be decided according to the family's risk capacity, income stability, and existing wealth. As admission comes close, the story should turn from wealth creation towards capital protection. With 5 years remaining, a plan can be made to slowly decrease the equity exposure after reviewing the portfolio, not in a single shock. Shifting the certain fees of the final 2 or 3 years respectively into short-duration debt, money market or suitable low-volatility options can decrease the risk of a forced redemption right after a market crash. If it is education abroad, add currency and visa-related expenses along with tuition. An exact estimation of rupee depreciation is not possible, therefore a buffer in the target and more certainty for the first year's fees can give wisdom. Imagine the market falls 25% 6 months before admission. If the entire corpus is in equity, then it will recover in the long term is useless despite being correct, because the university deadline is today. That is why before starting a child's SIP, 3 foundations are needed: an emergency reserve, manageable debt, and a reliable cash flow. Without these, the SIP will stop in a small trouble, or investments will have to be sold at the wrong time. Sufficient term insurance of the earning parent is the invisible pillar of this plan. A mutual fund takes years to form a corpus. If the parent has an early death, insurance tries to fill the gap of that incomplete goal. Health insurance is also equally essential. If a hospital bill eats up the education fund, a good fund selection has no meaning. The child's portfolio is not a separate island from the rest of the family's financial planning. If the investment is in the parent's name, keep nominee details, the will, and documents updated. Considering nomination as the complete estate plan is not right, both records and legal planning should be clear for succession and access. Every year review the fees estimate, corpus, SIP amount, return assumption, and asset allocation. If the market went up, look at the goal gap before celebration. If income increased, do a step up. If the target changed, the plan should change too. With time, include the child in this story too. First explain the goal, then risk and compounding, because coming of financial maturity before getting control at the age of 18 years is more essential than paperwork. Many months before majority, pay attention to the AMC's notice and prepare the minor to major documents. If a final moment KYC delay stops the admission payment, years of disciplined investing can lose against an operational mistake.
If this video has taught you something new, or if you feel this information should reach more people, don't forget to like and share the video. Your small share can become valuable and useful information for someone else. If you have any questions related to this topic, or if you would like to share your opinion with us, be sure to write in the comment box. We read every question and suggestion from you, because your feedback inspires us to create better content. And if you want to keep receiving such interesting and reliable information about business, the economy, and the world in the future, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel GRT Business and also press the bell icon so that you get notifications of every new video directly. At GRT Business, we always strive to provide you with accurate, balanced, and reliable information. Our news and analysis are prepared based on information obtained from various news agencies, public sources, and public opinion. We make every effort to verify and validate each fact as much as possible, but in case of any possible error or dispute, the responsibility lies with the respective sources. Our only aim is to present you with a correct and trustworthy perspective so that you can understand any topic better.